Hey everybody, welcome. My name's Chris. I'm a bookseller at Boswell Book Company here on the east side of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm thrilled to be spending this afternoon chatting with Rowan Beaird. Welcome, Rowan.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So Rowan, author of The Divorcées, is here to chat about her new novel, Tenderness. Comes out Tuesday, and she will be here at Boswell on Wednesday, August the 5th at 6:30 chatting with Christy Clancy. So you get two interviewers for one book. Um, but this is like the Boswell event preview interview chat thing. So welcome. I always like to start. Will you just give me the elevator pitch for the book? Give us the elevator pitch for the book.
Yeah, of course. So Tenderness is set in 1976 over the course of a wedding weekend in which the bride has recently gotten out of a cult, a real cult that existed in the 70s called Synanon. And the book is told largely from the point of view of her brother and her best friend, who's very much in love with her and is also not the groom. And they're trying to figure out why she joined Synanon and whether or not she's really left.
Right, absolutely. So the first question I think everybody's going to ask about this book is what's the deal with cults? I mean, why do you want to write about them? Why are we all so fascinated? Why this one? Give us the rundown.
Yeah, God, yeah, no small task to explain our nation's obsession with cults.
Yes, in 2 minutes or
Um,
less.
exactly, super succinctly. So I think to get started, I think my obsession with cults is almost lifelong at this point. And I think that the reason that I was obsessed with them at the start is because of the reason I think a lot of people are drawn to them, was is the sort of sensationalist headlines, the acts of violence, the bizarre belief systems, but why I was pulled as a writer to actually write a novel that centers around a cult in a lot of ways is because the more that I learned about cults, the more research that I did into them, the more that I realized that the sort of people that join cults are not so different from myself. They're generally, middle class, college educated. But the moment that they join a cult, it's this moment in their life when they're at a moment of extreme vulnerability. So maybe they've left a church or left a marriage, or maybe they just graduated from college. And at that exact moment where they feel like maybe they're questioning some belief systems, the foundation of their lives feels shaky beneath their feet, this group happens to reach out at that exact moment and says, you're answering all of these, or you're asking all these questions, and we have answers. And so it made me think really deeply about all those moments in my life when I felt particularly vulnerable and how it's almost just dumb luck that I'm not one of these people that joined a cult. And so I became really fascinated by what it would be like to become a part of one of these organizations. And just exploring, I think, what I'm always interested in, which is characters at a crisis point in their own lives.
I think you captured so well in the novel. I love the scene, not to give anything away, but we do have a quick scene where Shay is kind of in her first moments with this group, and it's so
Yeah.
powerful. So
Oh,
it's
thank you so
really
much.
cool. Um, but you did touch on the violence and kind of the scary feeling we get around cults. I think it's
Yeah.
another thing captured really well in the book, and the word that keeps coming up is menace. Everyone feels so much
Yeah.
menace on this island where they are for the wedding. I love it. Um, and I wonder for you, and can you just tell us without telling us too much, is something off on the island? Is someone there who shouldn't be? Is it what's scarier, the cult members or the ultra wealthy?
I know that's really for the reader to decide. I have some ideas of my own, but yeah, I'm so glad that you felt that sense of menace. I think that was really important for me to communicate, really from the moment that you set foot on the island. And I think that that potential for violence is something I'm really fascinated by. And again, I don't want to give too much away about the novel, but I think what I wanted to explore is both, is there a physical threat on this island? Are there is somebody in attendance at this wedding that shouldn't be? But also, what's the figurative threat? What's the fact that Shay, the bride, did join this organization? What does that mean about her and the decisions that she's made, including this decision to get married? And so I think that, there's, again, not just that physical menace, but the menace of the atmosphere and of wrong decisions.
Yes, I love it. There's so many scenes that can both tip into like, oh, something horrible's really about to happen,
Yeah.
but also someone's about to make a decision that's going to ruin their life here. It's so good.
Exactly. Oh, good.
Um, you brought this up, but I'm going to talk about it more. The book is about Shay. It really centers on her. It's about her story, but we get so much of the book through those two young men, her brother
Yeah.
and her friend who's, deeply in love with her. Um, how are you thinking about that? Because I think the book so much becomes about men watching women. So as you are writing, how are you thinking about the ways men perceive women and, write stories about who they're perceiving?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I will say, when I initially conceived of the novel, the novel is in many ways about whether or not we can ever know the people that we love. And so when I set out to write this novel, my idea for the structure of it was that it would really only be told through the eyes of these two male characters, so Joel and William, and there would only be one chapter from Shay's perspective. And so the novel itself would be really about how well you could know this woman, like you say, solely through the eyes of two men who love her. And as I started to get feedback from early wonderful readers, the feedback was generally, well, you can't. You can't really know her as well as we, as the reader, want to know her. And so, really, with each draft, it's definitely a kill your darlings moment where I realized I had made this craft decision really early on, but it wasn't the right decision in service of the story. And so, with each draft, I started layering more and more scenes from Shay's perspective, and I think that was really critical to the success of the book, whatever success it managed to achieve in its original aims. But I think it's a really fascinating portrait of her still, through the eyes of these two men. But then you have these moments where you're actually able to dip into her backstory and sort of understand all the decisions that led her to this moment. And there was tension in that decision to include more scenes with her because, as you know, there's a lot of mystery to her in this book. And sort of like I shared in my elevator pitch, you as the reader are trying to figure out if she's really left this organization behind. And so as a writer, I could not give you too much access to her. And so I think in some ways I was able to do a little bit of my original aim in terms of giving a character sketch of her through the eyes of these two men, but then also you get a deeper understanding of who she is as a person.
Absolutely. Oh, I think the balance is just perfect in this book.
Good.
Um, my last question too, I'm always curious. Timeline, the book is set in 1976. What do you like about the 70s? Why is that period so fascinating? Why'd you want to write about it?
Yeah, God, it's interesting because I originally made the decision to set it in the 70s simply because of the timeline of Synanon. And so there was that initial rationale, but the more that I immersed myself in the 70s, the more that I thought, oh, wow, there's really no other time that this novel could be set. And I think that's because, in large ways, America as we know it in 2026, I think the 70s is when that country formed. It was a time of such distrust and dislocation. I mean, the number of parallels between that decade and the decade we're living in now, in terms of politicians very much being criminals, a sense of, great unrest, oil crises, huge technological advancements that were making people think they wouldn't have jobs in a year. And so I think, similar to my first novel, I'm always interested in how different decades can hold a mirror up to our own. And I think the 70s does that in a really incredible way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the book's great. I think it's incredibly resonant. I think a lot of people are absolutely going to love it, and I think everyone should be coming to our event with Rowan. Rowan, thanks so much for spending a few minutes this afternoon chatting about the book with me. It is
There
keyword
it is.
Tenderness. Loved it. Book's going to be out Tuesday. Rowan's going to be here at Boswell to talk about it. Wednesday, August 5th at 6:30. I'll put a registration link down there and the info, etc., etc. Sign up and be here. Thanks again, and we can't wait to see you here at Boswell.
Thanks so much. I can't wait.